Coming up, what Cessna says the future of aircraft sales may be in a COVID world. The answer may surprise you.
And flyovers continue to celebrate medical staff.
And a flock of Bonanzas in New York City. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment.
Your plane is a valuable tool. With the Genesis Aerosystems STEC 3100 digital autopilot, you can rest assured you will arrive safely to your destination. The 3100 is the industry's most advanced autopilot for single and twin-engine aircraft, providing exceptional workload reduction, safety-enhancing capabilities such as straight and level mode and speed protection. To learn more, visit our website today.
This is AOPA Live This Week with Tom Haynes and Alyssa Cobb.
Some great new features rolling out from Flight Service this month. They could save you some time.
While a growing majority of pilots use app or web-based briefings, well, there are still many times an old-fashioned phone call is just the best, and that's about to become a lot more streamlined. Leidos Flight Service is making some changes to the way you interact with the briefer when you call, starting with associating any 1-800-WXBrief.com profiles associated with the phone number you're calling from. That will let the briefer see any flight plans you've made with a website or a commercial provider that links to the Flight Service website.
So as you know, if you file a flight plan, maybe IFR through an application that isn't linked to us, we're not able to see that because it goes right to center. In this case, we'll have all that information in front of us and we won't have to ask you to run through the entire flight plan again. So it's a great service.
When calling for an updated briefing, now you'll be able to get just that. The briefer will be able to see exactly what information has changed since your last briefing and give you just what you need.
We're adding the ability for our flight service specialists to provide updates to a previous standard briefing that were received through either our website, 1-800-WXBrief.com, or through a commercial flight planning provider that links to your flight service account and provides regulatory compliant briefing content to the user.
And speaking of just what you need, you can now opt out of required statements to help speed up the process. But it may not be a good idea for everyone.
When you opt out from those statements on the website, when the feature is available, the specialist won't be required to provide that extra wording each time you call. But we do recommend for any student or novice pilots that need those reminders, it's not recommended to opt out of those statements.
To take advantage of the streamlined features, make sure you have the phone number you're calling from associated with your profile on 1-800-WXBrief.com. The changes will take effect this month.
And speaking of change, a big change for the month of July. That's right, no AirVenture. EAA has canceled the big show in Oshkosh. Coronavirus got it too, unfortunately.
It was really a problem of lead times. So if you look at the production setup for AirVenture, May is when we start bringing in lots of volunteers. We bring in all the suppliers to set up tents, and it really gets busy, and we have a lot of people engaged in it. The month of May for the state of Wisconsin is still under a stay-at-home order through Memorial Day weekend. So that prohibits us from bringing anybody onto the grounds and having any work parties or being able to accomplish anything. Plus, the guidance for Wisconsin coming out of the May 26th, this phase program, 1, 2, 3, is really unclear as to right now they're saying they're still red for phase 1. We got to get to a phase 3 before you could have a large gathering, and they still have yet to define how large will be large.
Hard decision for sure. You can hear a lot more about it in a Pilot Lounge with Jack Belton and AOPA's Mark Baker. You can find it in the Pilot Lounge channel at aopalive.org. Hey, while Wisconsin is shut down, things are opening up a bit in Kansas. In an investor call late last week, Textron officials announced that some workers were returning to the aircraft plants in Wichita. I spoke with Textron Aviation Senior Vice President Rob Scholl for all the details this week.
We are actually having production right now. As you mentioned, we did have the announcement of 4 weeks of furlough, and we have extended that to 8 weeks on some of the lines. Really, the first priority is the safety of our employees. Here in Wichita, the peak of the COVID issues was forecasted to happen in late April. And so obviously with that timing, we made the decision to do the furloughs, protection of our employees. And also with as much uncertainty as is in the marketplace, that gives us the option to, work on production levels in a way that we think will adjust for market demand going forward. So there are employees back to work. As I look out my window here over at our factory, we have employees back building airplanes and components. And during that whole time, we've had a lot of the team here doing a lot of work getting airplanes delivered to customers. We do still have deliveries ongoing. So hasn't been totally quiet, but it's nice to see the people in the factory starting to get back to work, and we'll continue to monitor the furloughs as we go forward.
While things are slow on the production lines, work on the new Sky Courier turboprop twin and the single-engine Denali turboprop continue.
The team right now on the Sky Courier is working really hard. They did take a little bit of furlough time during the first 4 weeks just to make sure from a protection standpoint we were protecting our employees, but they are back to work, and the team is making rapid progress there, and I'm hoping to have some pretty exciting news on the Sky Courier. So really the Sky Courier program is full speed ahead. On the Denali program, we're still kind of where we have been in our recent comments on that. We're working with GE to understand the timing on the Catalyst engine. The Catalyst engine is, from a performance standpoint, is doing fantastic in the test cells. What we're waiting on is the first engines that we can get on the airplane and get that airplane in the air.
Scholl said that the flight school business is keeping 172 production running.
So far, the piston market is holding up, as far as I can tell. We do have on the 172s, obviously, primarily a trainer aircraft, and we assume that there might be an impact to the market when this happened. As we've gone back and talked to those customers, they've all communicated that they still plan to take these airplanes. I think there's still going to be demand for pilots going forward, and the flying schools, at least at this point in time, aren't slowing down. So the 172 market seems to be holding strong. On the rest of the pistons, we've seen good demand on the 182, the 206, and the Baron and Bonanza as well. So I'm optimistic by what I see in the piston market.
Scholl says few used business airplanes for sale is a good sign for possible new sales.
The pre-owned market is very encouraging. They have been at historical lows as far as aircraft available for sale on both the Citation and the King Air side, especially when you consider aircraft that are 10 years or younger. The numbers are very low. And I think as you look at the numbers now, we haven't seen a drastic uptick in aircraft available for sale in the last several weeks. And a couple of reports that I've read recently also indicate that on the light jet side, there's actually been a slight uptick in pricing on the used market. So I think as you look at that, the dynamics on the used aircraft side are a good indicator for the market.
So Alyssa, the optimism that we heard Rob talking about is actually reflected across a couple of manufacturers. We talked to Simon Caldecott at Piper last week, and he was pretty optimistic. Also, an analyst, Brian Foley, this week came out and talked about the business aircraft market and said that it's very tight. People are hanging on to their business jet market, even in this uncertain times. They are not selling their business jets. And so that's a good sign for aircraft manufacturers in that when people start buying airplanes again, they're going to have to look to new ones because not that many used ones available.
Yeah, and at this time, it's always good to have a little bit of good news. So that's great.
That's right. We can use it.
Yes. Well, speaking of good news and boosting spirits, Operation America Strong continues. The flyovers of medical centers honor the healthcare workers on the front lines of COVID-19, and AOPA Live's Paul Harrop reports.
It's something few have ever seen. The United States' two flagship jet teams in formation, seen here coming across Baltimore on May 2nd.
And it was really cool, it was really awesome. I'd never seen one before.
The mission is to boost morale among healthcare workers and for staff at Johns Hopkins. It worked.
It's really flattering that they appreciate us that much because I feel like they do so much for our country.
Yeah, I would like to thank them for everything they do for us and for them taking time out of their schedule just to fly over to let us know that they're thinking about us. Just means more to me than anything you can imagine.
The flight crisscrossing Charm City before heading off to D.C. and Atlanta.
I thought it was great. It was so awesome.
Other cities also getting the teams this week. Texas on Wednesday and likely coming soon to your neck of the woods. In Baltimore, Paul Harrop, AOPA Live.
The teams normally announce their flyovers a few days out, but if you're going to watch them, remember to do so within the guidelines set out by your local authorities.
That's right. And while the Blues and the Thunderbirds are flying, many of you aren't. And that's because of the COVID pandemic and the uncertainty about whether you can get current or not, or about renewing your medical. The special federal aviation regulation we told you about last week fixed some of those issues, but some of you are still a little confused about what the SFAR does and whether it applies to you, and that's certainly understandable because it is pretty confusing. So let us help you clear up some of the confusion. First, when it comes to medical certification, it's pretty simple. If your medical expires between March 31st and May 31st, it's been extended to June 30th. But for flight reviews, recent flight experience, and instrument currency, well, it gets a little more complicated.
It is complicated, and it is very helpful to have a flowchart in front of you, because how this applies can depend upon both what type of privileges you're exercising at the time of the flight and also the type of flight that you're doing. So it's not an automatic extension like the knowledge test or the medicals. There is an analysis that needs to happen on a flight-by-flight basis. And that's what the flowchart can help our members with.
You can find those flowcharts on our website, but then the question is, why is it so complicated?
If you look at how they brought the rule forward and how they were able to bring it forward so quickly, relatively speaking, to promulgating regulations, that helps us understand why. They put this through the special federal aviation regulation pathway, which means instead of having a usual period where you publish it and have literally a month or more for the public to comment, they realized that process wouldn't work, the regular regulatory process. And so they used this special process. But what that also means is they had to show good cause for bypassing the public comment period. And they also had to show the public good of passing this. And so that is why they tailored a lot of the extensions, particularly for flight reviews, currency, etc., to things that enable COVID relief operations or COVID-related operations instead of just any type of flight.
So for everything other than medical certificates, you have to be flying a kind of operation that the FAA considers appropriate for relief. So work your way through the flowcharts to see if the SFAR applies to you. And if you're still confused, well, that's okay and understandable to a point. The folks in the AOPA Pilot Information Center are there to help. And if it's really complicated, you can also consult with an aviation attorney if you're a member of the AOPA Legal Services Plan. Well, hey, last Friday, a big anniversary. May 1st marked 3 years of Basic Med. That returned thousands of pilots to the air, and nearly 56,000 pilots continue to use that program. And more pilots are continuing to take advantage of the privilege that allows you to fly certain aircraft without a third class or better medical certificate.
So the interest is still there, and even, despite the COVID-19 stuff that we're going through right now, we're still getting a lot of calls regarding Basic Med. So yeah, I'd say everybody's happy.
And pilots are happy because to obtain a Basic Med certificate, all you need to do is complete an online course and obtain a physical from a state licensed physician. And with that, you can fly most GA aircraft with no more than 6 seats and less than 6,000 pounds. And now that Basic Med has been around for a while, some pilots are a little confused about what they need to do to renew that program.
There are two components to the renewal or the reactivation of your privileges. Every 24 calendar months, pilots have to go back and complete the medical self-assessment course that's available on our website on the Basic Med landing page. So that's renewable every 24 calendar months. Every 48 months to the day, a new physical examination has to be done.
Everything you need to know about Basic Med is on our website. See the link on the homepage. You can also contact the Pilot Information Center. So, Alyssa, hard to believe it's been 3 years, but certainly Basic Med been a big, valuable tool for a lot of pilots.
It is, and my dad is one of those 56,000.
Oh.
He is.
Oh, great.
Yep, loving taking advantage of the Basic Med flying his
Right.
172. Well, speaking of family, Mother's Day is coming up. And on our website, you can find some great ideas to celebrate the mothers in your life this weekend. The Mother's Day Gift Guide Quarantine Edition has ideas for some activities you can do, like taking a virtual wine tasting. It also has aviation-themed gift ideas, including some from our AOPA Pilot Gear store. So happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Coming up, more videos sent in by our awesome viewers. This week, it's Bonanzas over New York.
And we've got you covered. AOPA Live this week continues in a moment. Welcome back. We're so thankful to you, our viewers, for sending in some amazing video week after week. And this week, Anil Sangwan and friends take us high above New York City in a flight of Bonanzas.
Newark Tower, good afternoon. Bonanza 6310, Victor, a flight of 5 with you, 1,300.
Thanks, Anil, and a cool perspective on the city.
And the perspective from GA Aircraft is helping out in Alaska. The state has an unusually heavy snowpack this year, and as that begins to melt, there's a threat of river ice jams and flooding. The National Weather Service is asking pilots to provide reports of river ice conditions, and that will help them provide flood warnings to Alaskan communities. And that is something that's extremely important. I know a camp I've gone to up north of the Arctic Circle at different times has been threatened with flooding, and those reports are essential. So this is really just another great example of how general aviation important it is to the 49th state. Well, something important to all of us is GPS. As we've told you before, the GPS signal is facing a threat of interruption from Legato networks. The FCC, over the objections of about everybody from AOPA to the Department of Defense, granted them a license to use frequencies that may overwhelm GPS receivers. And that doesn't sit well with Oklahoma Senator Jim Inhofe, chairman of the Armed Services Committee.
And I don't think it's a good idea to place at risk the GPS signals that enable our national and economic security for the benefit of one company and its investors. After extensive testing and analysis, experts at almost every federal agency tell us that Legato's plan will interfere with our GPS systems.
Now, some of those experts testified before the Senate Armed Services Committee on Wednesday. They had a very hard time understanding the FCC's actions.
And at the end of the day, we were completely caught off guard when over that weekend in April, the decision was taken by the FCC to go ahead and move forward.
You know, the way I couch GPS, it's the DNA of our way of war. It's systemic in everything that we do. And it is clear, without question, that putting a ground emitter in with the space signals will cause interruption. I think that will increase risk to force and risk to mission.
Senator Inhofe is rallying support in the Senate to reverse the FCC decision.
AOPA opposes the Legato license, but we've been a longtime supporter of contract control towers. We have one here at our home base at Frederick, Maryland, as a matter of fact, and we've maintained that they're just as good as FAA staff towers and cheaper to boot. And the Department of Transportation Inspector General agrees. A new report says that contract towers were more cost-effective per aircraft handled than comparable FAA towers. They operated almost half the cost, as a matter of fact, and there is no difference in safety. And air traffic control towers across the country have reduced hours to limit employees' exposure to the coronavirus. Now the FAA has released a full list of affected facilities. There are around 100 of them. They're all Class Charlie and Delta airports. You can find the list on the FAA website and take an extra careful look at those NOTAMs before you fly.
Protecting aircraft, that's what Bruce's Custom Covers is all about. I have one of them. The company is family-owned and passionate about what they do. We had a chance to visit the factory to see what goes into making a custom airplane cover.
Bruce's Custom Covers is, I believe, the largest manufacturer of aircraft covers in the world. We have over 15,000 products, all for the protection of the aircraft. We've been in business for 40 years, and over that time, we've developed lots of products for airplanes, as well as enhanced our commitment to making sure that our company stays growing and that it stays growing through a commitment to our employees. I'm always thinking about what our customers need in order to keep that aircraft operating the way they need it to. We have customers that keep coming back to us year after year for the same aircraft that they want to keep enhancing or for new aircraft that they've acquired, as well as manufacturers that are looking for special needs that they want and special operators in any part of the world. The building is about 20,000 square feet. We have about 70 employees. One of the keys to our success here is that we produce covers on demand. Doesn't matter how old the airplane is, how new the airplane is, or how odd the airplane is. One of the things we're highly aware of here is that our products live outside all the time. We engineer our materials so that they last as long as possible. Virtually all the material that we use here is made especially for our purposes and goes into our product with that in mind. All of the patterns that we have, all very carefully designed in a CAD system. After looking at it in our design department, they come out to our cutting table, and here they're cut. Then they're bundled up as you see here and moved along to our sewing tables. We basically begin with a standardized pattern. What we end up doing is tailoring these covers in a way so that they're designed to fit that specific airplane, and that means tailoring it for antennas, other kinds of protrusions, other needs that the customer has, just the details of that specific aircraft.
We've had to work for 40 years together as partners and keeping the business going and growing. And really, my passion is taking care of the employees, making sure people have what they need to do their job. I view leadership as service. It's kind of a mom and pop organization, and we celebrate our employees, appreciate them.
Just sort of focused on making sure that everybody works in the same, going in the same direction, and has the same vision that we're trying to impart to everyone.
You can read more about Bruce's Custom Covers in the May issue of AOPA Pilot Magazine. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for letting us into your homes from ours.
That's right. Remember to check AOPA.org throughout the week for more videos. We're hard at work creating a lot more content for you and the rest of general aviation. Find it on the website. We'll see you next week.
There are many important things to consider before purchasing an aircraft. Let the experts at Aerospace Reports help guide you through the process. We combine expert knowledge with our long-standing commitment to personalized customer service to perfect your transaction. Learn more at aerospacereports.com.